not only did they have an encounter, they recall these creatures exhibiting some certain abilities as well. Eyewitnesses down here that claim to have seen these creatures standing upwards of 9 to 10 feet tall. I got started in all this, when back in '95. Um, it was a childhood, I guess, fantasy. Basically started when I was probably 7 years old, 7 or 8 years old, somewhere around there. Um, uh, Me and my brother uh, used to run around the woods all the time as kids, playing in the woods and just discovering everything. And um, and we used to watch a lot of TV shows that interest us, and one of the shows was In Search Of. Uh, it's the old '70s TV show back in the day. Um, and one day we saw the episode, an episode there on that show uh, with Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin um, with the Patty film. Um, so as I was looking at that and watching that, I thought that was pretty wild, and I always wondered that if something like that would actually exist in the field, or out in the woods that we were playing in as kids, whether it be in North Carolina or here in Florida. Um, so that kind of interested me as a child. And then, of course, as you get older, you kind of put things in the back of your mind. And then back in '95, I was uh, getting into the computer industry. So I decided to play around on the search engines at the time that were there. And I just haphazardly just put in Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and see what came up. And found a lot of interesting sites that came up that dealt with the subject. And I found out that a lot of people were actually actively going into the forests across the country and researching these things. And I thought that was cool. So that kind of just ignited the fire in me at that point to delve into it like with both feet. And so I started reading all kinds of literature at the time that was out that I could get my hands on, um, reading hundreds of thousands of reports across the country and the world. So that's where it all began. So it's not like today where there's multiple podcast shows now about it, and a lot more that out there than there was back in '95. Um, but in my armchair research that I was doing back then, I, with all the reports that I was reading across the country and different parts of the world, I was picking up patterns of these creatures that the things that they would do, and I was putting them all together, and just getting a realization of how these creatures operate in the forest. So
What
after
did you learn? What did you learn? What kind of patterns were you recognizing from your armchair?
um, well, the patterns of things that they would eat in the forests, how the different structures that they would build, that people would find in different opposite ends of the country and different parts of the world. Um, I would see that they would create these things or leaving as sign maybe for them or um, just little different things like that. Patterns of how they would follow the food supply in their areas in different parts of the world, as well as the seasons. Um, so those things all kind of collectively, you know, gathered it as data for me um, to get a little closer knowledge of these creatures. So putting all that information together, and I did this over a span of a couple of years, maybe 2.5 years doing armchair research. And then one day I decided, you know what, all this information that I have, I need to actually put it to work in the field here in Florida. So, I think it was back in 1998 is when I joined a large group that was out. Actually, um, kind of started the same time I did as far as, you know, getting the wheels rolling in the field. But I was with that group for probably a little over a year, and there were some things that I didn't quite like, and I thought it was counterproductive for the field of research in general. So I ended up leaving that group and started doing the things on my own, getting out in the field, doing this on my own in the field, and um, so I was doing that. The people I've worked with uh, previously on the other group uh, were contacting me and asking me, "Hey, what's up? What's going on with you? You still in this field? Are you doing anything?" And so I said, "Yeah, I'm still doing my thing. I'm doing my own thing out in the field, doing it on my own." And there's a couple people that wanted to hook up with me and do the same thing. So around 2000, beginning year of 2000, I decided to create a group called the Independent Sasquatch Research Team. So we can have other independent people that we hook up with as a team and get out in different parts of Florida or wherever you live at to do this research and do it for the right reasons. Um, and our main focus is to, keep that focus of make it about us, make it about the research and finding answers to multiple questions on these creatures and being honest and, you know, being kind to others in this field. And that's basically what we set out to do as our goals. Um, and, fast forward to the future and here we are.
Well, what all have you discovered? I mean, with the other group you were with, as well as with this new group that sometimes gets out, what have you seen? What have you experienced?
Well, with the other group, basically the same things. You find the sign that's out there in the forest, and so the knowledge that I've gathered personally, that knowledge that I've uh, had over the years, um, that I use that out in the field and to be able to track the signs of these creatures and see if they're in this area or not, or different parts of these areas here in Florida. Um, so knowing how to identify um, what to look for.
So what have you seen?
Oh gosh, we've seen many, you know, tree structures, footprints, um, as well as, audio uh, of these creatures, in the field. As far as for me, a lot of people ask me if I ever set eyes on these creatures yet, and I'm not, and the answer is no, not yet. But I've been in areas close proximity of these creatures that had whistles, things thrown at us. Of course, track and the signs that they leave behind. So everything but a sighting for me. Now, others on our team, there's a couple others that actually had visual encounters and actually seen them or seen one exactly. And there's quite a few encounters that other team members have seen.
Hi, I'm Linda Eastburn of Linda Eastburn YouTube channel, and I have a new book out called Threshold to Encounters. It's about 40 years of research and experience with all of these wild cryptids that many of you I know have encountered yourself. You can find it on Amazon.com.
and
They're far and few between, aren't they? I mean, it is
they
really
are.
hard to get eyes on them. That is true. Let's talk a little bit about the structures you found. I heard someone talk the other day about a structure that I found really interesting. I hadn't heard this type of build before, but it was intricately woven, a circular dome like, and the top of it was open, like you could put something down in it, like maybe a young one or a child, almost like a, kind of like a crib almost, but it was pretty enclosed. Now, I haven't heard anything like that. Have you seen anything like that, or what did the structures look like that you have run across?
I haven't seen anything quite like that. We have come across areas, an area where it's here in Florida where there's a lot of hunting in this one area during the hunting season. Um, and we did see two saplings actually of cypress saplings, and they're two, probably about 3 inch in diameter. And what it was is it was woven pretty neatly, where they were pretty close to each other. So as it grew up, it looked like something took the tops of these two and just kind of wove it into each other like an arc. Um, and it was right next to a pine tree where this gentleman was hunting during deer season, where he had an encounter um, right in front of him in the early morning. Uh, and we asked him if he ever saw, snapped a picture of the structure and sent it to him. And one of the other gentlemen actually that did the report on this gentleman that had the encounter, he asked him, hey, do you remember seeing this structure in front of your deer stand? Because it was right in front of his, within 15 feet of the tree that he was using as a deer stand. And he looked at it and he says, no, there's no way I would do something like that, or any hunter, because that would take too much time and there's no reason to do so. But when he had his encounter, he did not recognize that being there at the time. So something came back later and woven that in there. And there's pictures on our website of that particular area. And so, and then there's other structures that you see commonly throughout the country where things were placed and just kind of built like something with a thumb out there did that. And of course, you have to rule out human activity. That's the first thing that we try to do is rule out, if anything was created by a human. And then once we come to that conclusion, if it was or not, um, then the possibilities is, something else with an opposing thumb, built a structure. So, and there's also uh, an image that was across where was it? Near Russia, Germany, over in that area, uh, where it was discovered that almost the same type of arch was created there, where there's a lot of activity of Bigfoot in that area as well. So that's another uh, aspect of how these things, whatever these things represent to them, other creatures in other parts of the country are basically doing the same types of things. So I found that very interesting. And all that information you can see on our website as well.
Give us your website so people can go to that and take a look at that.
Okay. Our website is isrtusa.com. If you do a search engine, you can look up Sasquatch Florida or Bigfoot Florida, something like that in the search engines. You should be able to pull up be able to see the independent Sasquatch research team there. And then our Facebook is Florida ISRT USA, and you can find us on that as well.
Very good. People really do like to see as much as they can, the evidence that you found. So that's good that they can go take a look at that. Something you
Absolutely.
said earlier, a couple of questions I have. Something you said earlier is like your team goes out for the right reasons. What do you think the right reason is to look for a Sasquatch?
Well, you don't want to make it about yourself. There's a lot of people that, want to be out there to make a name for themselves. And um, to a point, that's good. I mean, as far as, wanting to get your name and your team out there and people to come to you for encounters and reports and so forth. So doing it for the right reasons is not thinking that you're going to make millions of dollars in this field of research, trying to discover things. Because if that was the case, then it would have already been done by somebody probably, or but the chances of that are very slim. So doing it for the right reasons is the discovery of the creature and trying to get closer to these creatures to figure out you know what they are, where they come from, and so forth. Um, when you put too much of your ego and yourself into this, it kind of muddies the water, so to speak. And I've seen a lot of that when I first started in this field. And one of the reasons why I wanted to create a team like this is because I wanted to be the total opposite of that and direct it towards more of the hard research. And we wanted to attract people to our team that wanted the same things. So that's who we try to look for if we are looking for people that want to join our team. They have to have the same mindset as that. And so, yeah,
Someone who can kind of get their ego out of the way and
exactly.
do the
Yeah.
work rather
And
than.
and use the scientific methods to be able to, collect data, and put that first and foremost ahead of anything else. So that's the only way we're going to be able to get answers is, putting the work into it and doing it, doing the grunt work, so to speak.
Yes, exactly. And that's a lot. I mean, you go out there so many times and there's so little to observe or to really get too much evidence. How often do you give out?
Uh, for me personally, it's been kind of up and down over the past few years, um, due to personal things, and that's going on in our lives. But I'm looking forward to getting out more and more. But the rest of our team, they get out as well. It's a little difficult for everybody because we're you know, can, we would consider ourselves a weekend warriors on this subject because, everyone has a job and they have to pay bills and they have all these other things that everyone has to take care of. Um, so we try to get out there as much as we can and as best as we can. And especially in the areas that we deem hot areas or active areas that we know we have seen really good evidence in those areas.
Exactly. So you said you had vocals. What type of vocals have you experienced?
Um, Quite a lot. We had whistles, uh, creatures or beings that would imitate owls, or coyotes. And some of those sounds are on our website that we have. You can go and listen to those on there. Um, there's one in particular that we've got quite a few clips of in one night, near a river. And some of it, one clip in particular was kind of like, what I call gibberish, but it almost sounds like if people have ever heard the Sierra sounds with Ron Moorhead. Um, if you haven't, you need to go to his website and listen to those. But there was a short but very fast bit of sound like two individuals just kind of arguing real quick, and it was just that, just fast, and that was it. And I didn't hear that until I put it on the main computer here at home and had the volume up a lot more, and you can hear it in the background. These all these sounds that I got that night were in an area that we frequent. Uh, So, and also it was coming from the same area that we traveled in. So we had passed the area and walked up to a river, the river in the area, and we're just standing in that area. And a lot of the audio and sounds that we were getting were in pointed in the direction that the trail that we just walked down. So I don't know if these things were watching us as we were walking down this trail because we had lights out, no headlamps at the time. We just walked through the dark using the moonlight as light to traverse through the forests, and so I think they were just kind of watching us and seeing what we were doing, and so we got whistles and some tree branch knocks, and snaps and stuff like that. Um, yeah, it's very interesting stuff.
What about eye shine? Have you been close enough to get any eye shine?
We've had eye shine too as well, off in the distance. Usually it's in areas that we're in that's remote, on trail, some are off trail. Um, and it's very difficult to see sometimes or determine what they could be. Sometimes they could be owls, um, doing that as well. But quite a few of us on the team have seen eye shine and also other strange things, like orbs. And I personally and a couple others on our team one night were actually trying to decipher what we were seeing in the sky, just kind of hovering in the air. Um, and it kind of looked like what would be proposed as a UFO because it was changing different colors as well while it was hovering. And we've seen something like two different occasions like that in one particular area that we research in. So that was pretty interesting.
How long did you watch it? How long did you see it in the sky?
Oh, it was there 30 minutes or more, and it would just hang there hovering. And it was pretty far off though. I mean, it was quite a distance. I actually um, that night picked up my binoculars and were looking through the binoculars at this thing, trying to see if it was moving or if it was a tower with a light on. And it wasn't a tower, because there is a tower, a cell tower there that has a red beacon light that goes off ever so many seconds. But this was totally not there in the afternoon because we went back and checked it and looked in the same direction where this thing was at, and there was nothing there during the day. So at night, the night before, um, it was definitely there. And on another occasion, probably maybe a month after that, um, just for giggles, we went in that same location and looked in that same direction, and there it was again, a different night. So, and then
That
one,
it had colored lights on it. What colors were?
yeah, it was kind of like a red, blue, and white. It was just kind of like flash, differently, you know, and it would stay. Some say it could have been a drone, but for for drones, this was back in I think it was 2016. I think it was 2015 or 2016, somewhere around there. For drones to last that long up in the sky, that was kind of unheard of because the battery packs on those things wouldn't last that long. Um, so a drone would have been ruled out at that point, because they just wouldn't stay hovering like that for very long without the battery dying on it itself. So, um, and then one of our other team members that lives down in South Florida, he has an area down there that he researches in, and he called me up one day, or I think he texted me or called me, one of the two, and he told me uh, the same thing. He said he goes, "You remember that thing we saw up in North or Central Florida?" And I said, "Yeah, that the little UFO thing." He goes, "Well," he goes, I just saw the same thing down there as well, in the same colors and everything." So that was pretty wild. Um, so it's interesting. You see things that you're not really looking for in this field while you're in the process of looking for Sasquatch and evidence and so forth, and you come across some other strange things out there.
Absolutely. And, in part, it may be because you're in the woods and there aren't other lights and you just happen to be there where you can see the sky. And
Yeah,
there may be in various places otherwise. But I agree, a lot of people do tend to see craft or orbs or things like that. Now, you mentioned an orb. Is this the same thing you're talking about, or was there a different incident with an orb?
um, no, there was a different incident where we some of our team members have witnessed orbs in area. One of our team members that passed away quite a while back. She actually had seen orbs in an area that she was researching in, and it would be just different colors, different ones, blue, red, and she didn't know what they were. But she was told by um, her native heritage folks that they said those were energy balls or energy orbs or just energy that just travels. So they really didn't give too much information on that. They just knew is that they were just dealt with energy. So either good or bad energy. I'm
They
not
do seem
sure,
to
but
be everywhere. I mean, people are describing those left and right when they're out in the
mhm.
woods, especially. There just seems to be a lot of orbs around. Have you ever had incidences where equipment failed or batteries drained or anything like that?
Absolutely, yeah. We had my GoPros fail at certain points where, um, and of course, when you're preparing to get out in the field, you make sure everything's charged up and powered up and ready to go. And I would have equipment like that, just the batteries just die completely on it in areas that were known to, have activity, which was strange. Two different occasions when I was setting up trail cams in bait areas. Would bait up the area, put a trail cam out, and I would get video clips up into the point where the bait was gone, and then afterwards I would, get video clips after that. So somewhere in the middle where something had took the bait, uh, I just kept getting like file errors on my SD cards, and that happened in two different areas, two separate occasions as well. So I found that pretty wild. And I don't know if that's uh, due to some abilities that they may use. Could be something with frequency that they're using, uh, like the infrasound. It could be something in that nature doing that. But
Yeah, I don't know what causes it, but it certainly does happen. And
yeah.
having been a UFO researcher since the early 90s,
Hmm.
I know that in the UFO community, this happens frequently when there's a craft around or where people believe they've seen an alien type of being or something like that. But I also hear it when people are out in the field and there's Bigfoot activity nearby.
Hmm.
Someone told me the other day that there was radiation found in a footprint of a Bigfoot. I
Well,
had
that's
not
interesting.
heard that before, but that would indicate some kind of maybe an electromagnetic field that
Hmm.
they are either traveling through or they exhibit from their being. I mean, it's just hard to say for sure because we exhibit some electromagnetic field also. We're all electrical beings,
Hmm.
but maybe it's a higher frequency or something that causes the batteries to drain. I really don't understand that phenomena very well, but I can certainly see how that consistency through some of these really unusual, abnormal experiences with things that we don't fully comprehend or understand, Bigfoot being one of those, may be part of the problem.
I believe so. I think they operate on a higher frequency than we do, and that's probably why they have these special abilities. When I first started in this field, I jumped on the same bandwagon as everybody else. Maybe they're an undiscovered ape uh, and all that. But about 10 years ago, um, I kind of walked away from that fact or that. understanding, because from what some eyewitnesses were reporting, that not only did they have an encounter, but they recall these creatures exhibiting some certain abilities as well. So, and a lot of people that don't understand or don't want to be criticized for things like that, they sometimes they may not come out um, and say that at first when they're talking about their encounter. But how I um, investigate people when their encounters, I kind of, have a tactic where, not a tactic, but this is the way I do it, is I always ask questions of their encounter, um, to a point where you kind of invest like a police investigates, or an investigator investigates a crime scene type of thing. So I found that, some people will actually come out and say, yeah, well, yeah, and also I didn't tell you this, but it was actually doing this as well, and I just didn't understand what it was, and a lot of this you'll hear nowadays within the past 10 or 15 years, the talking about the cloaking, um, where these creatures, the eyewitnesses have actually seen these things do this, or have this ability to do that, where they see just the silhouette of something that's, you know, pretty much how they described as the predator type cloaking type of activity that these creatures do. And I'm not saying that all of them do it, but there are quite a few people coming out about, you know, they actually have seen these creatures do that. So,
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Now I understand their hair is maybe translucent or reflects the environment around them, which would help them a lot to become somewhat invisible. But also I've heard of them, maybe an orb, and then they come out of an orb, and then they go back
I've
into
heard that.
the orb. I've heard that before. And I've also heard of they'll be walking, someone will be walking along a path, and there are Bigfoot prints going down beside them, but there's no visible Bigfoot standing there. That's really an odd one. It's like an invisible Bigfoot, but it's there.
Right. Yeah, I heard similar things as well. Um, and I don't know how your audience is. Some audience people, and I understand how they feel about, oh, these things are just flesh and blood. They don't have any of these abilities, and if you believe that, it's, you're nuts or what have you. But to look at this all in a scientific manner, which you should be doing that anyhow, um, science doesn't just, you know, it kind of upsets me that some people think that way. Um, because if you're really researching something that you want to delve into, you got to have your mind open to the fact that, a lot of things you may not understand at this moment, but you may understand later. So these things, just like I thought 100% they were flesh and blood ape, some undiscovered ape. Um, but the more you delve into this, and you read eyewitnesses accounts of what these creatures were doing at certain times, or whatever times while this encounter was happening, you start to realize there's something more to all of this than what we're, limiting ourselves. So you don't want to limit yourself on on finding out more details of these creatures. As humans, we tend to do that. Unfortunately, we try to put everything in a little box, and say, okay, this is it. And you really can't do that with any type of discovery of something that's not discovered yet, as far as, Sasquatch and aliens and so forth, and anything. So you got to have an open mind, and may not like I said, you may not understand it at that moment, but you know, don't over discard any of the evidence that you see, or things that you see that you may not make sense at the moment. So
Absolutely right. And also, I think we have to take into consideration the only thing we have to work with here are human awareness and our five senses, and we have serious limitations of what we can see out there.
yes, yeah,
My dog can perceive way more than I can with smell and hearing, and so we have to just give some consideration to our limitations as human beings as to what we're up against. And if they are of a different frequency, a higher frequency that we're not always able to perceive them, perhaps. If they can drain batteries and become light, just a light energy, then maybe there's something that we need to pursue in the way of scientific study about this type of energy frequency that we're not familiar with on a day-to-day basis. Most things that we know just can't do that. So we may be just coming into a time when science has to catch up with some of that. And I think on some levels, probably some science has, but it may not be mainstream enough for us to hear about it.
yeah, I think so. I think you're correct on all of that. I tend to think that at some point maybe we had these abilities as humans, but through hundreds of years we probably um, gotten away from it. Some of these, for instance, remote viewing. I'm not sure if you ever heard of remote viewing, but it's a skill set that uh, a lot of people can do, especially in the military. There was a special project on that the military was wanting to use that, and they still use it today. Um, but actually, the gentleman that we use for a tracking class that we wanted to have for our team to be able to learn how to track these creatures in the forest, hone our skills a lot better in the field. So we hired these gentlemen from Georgia, and they were all retired military. And the the main gentleman that headed up the team, um, he was well versed in remote viewing, and he used it many times for the military. So he trained his other teammates that were working with him on the team to be able to remote view. So they did a lot of search and rescue, or the police departments and that sort of thing. So they would remote view um, to be able to find people, you know, and it works. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of dedication, and you really have to train. Yeah, really have to, mentally you have to train for this to be able to done. But he says everybody can do it. I mean, it's there. I mean, he was giving us examples of hunters in South Africa that were remote viewing, and one in particular was a, a native there that was just staring off, glazy eyes staring off into the distance, and that's how he uh, found out about what remote viewing was. Um, and he said he told him that he's looking for a lion. Apparently, this huge lion was killing people in the tribes. So they were trying to hunt this thing down, and he was remote viewing and trying to figure out where this lion was at. And he got a picture in his head where he saw this lion, and he knew exactly where that area was. So he basically just went into that area that he saw this image in his head. And at that moment, he looks down and he sees the track of the lion. And at that point, he just tracks the lion, finds it, and kills it. So that's basically how remote viewing works. Uh, there's a lot more to it. That was kind of like a short rendition of how how it can work. But I found it pretty interesting that he said that we have the ability to do that, but we there's a lot to it that we have to do. We struggle more with things like that, but it's possible to do that sort of thing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was on a podcast the other day and I do remote viewing. I've studied with some of those military guys actually. And the host of the podcast asked me to remote view their property in North Carolina, which is some distance from Missouri.
mhm.
And it was interesting. Everything I got was correct, but I saw a forested area, quite a bit of land, main road, and then another road with narrow road, kind of rugged to get up to this high elevation, and it veed off. So a sign in the yard. Now that really stood out to the owner of the property because they just put that sign up. So it couldn't have been found anywhere else.
Wow.
Then the one thing I struggled with was I saw back behind the property on the left side this facility or this closed in area. It was like fenced in area or something like that. Well, is that a chicken coop or a dog run? But then the word compost came in.
Mm,
So that, well, I'm not sure, but something was composting there. It was some kind of
mm,
fertilizer that was being formed, out of this in this little area that was enclosed. Well, come to find out that was a little garden area. And he said, as we were speaking, of course, the plants had all died and they were all going back,
mhm,
into the earth, but I didn't get anything wrong. I also saw it on a high plateau, a kind of higher than anything else in the area. So it was all correct. The road did V. It did come off of another road. Lots of trees. It was kind of set up on a hill and some acreage there. So all of those things you can see. I agree, and everyone does have the skill. Sometimes we struggle because we want to make it a process of reasoning and logic when this information comes in from such a different resource than just our five senses. So you have to remove yourself from the logical reasonable basis of receiving information and just let it come to you. So that's kind of what I did on this podcast. But yeah, and interesting you said that you use this to track Bigfoot. When I made Byways of Bigfoot, after we had completed the first episode of that, or the first show of that, I did go in a remote view where we could find Bigfoot. Now, I haven't gone out to look for them at this location, but what I saw was about halfway up the river, there was an area with, kind of a ravine with these really kind of tall hills on each side, probably a river, but I didn't really see a river, so I can't say that for sure. But it was the end of a gravel road. It dead ended at this farm, and it was a goat farm. So that may or may not be enough information to find it, because I didn't get, coordinates or anything like that. But certainly you can go in and find things like this. I just feel confident there's probably a clan that lives in that ravine or close by that ravine. It's pretty hilly about halfway up that river, and
mm.
so there's a lot of places there that Bigfoot could definitely invest some time in in
Absolutely.
inhabiting. Yeah. So yeah, I can really appreciate that. So have you had luck finding Bigfoot through the process of remote viewing?
I haven't tried it. And it's like I said, I guess it's a skill set that's, sometimes it comes easier for some and harder for others. Um, I haven't personally been able to, delve into that enough to try it. Um, but one of the guys on our team, he has, and he uh, he actually went to a conference out, and I think it was in Vegas. They had a conference out there, and he went out there to, I think it was Vegas. Um, and it was a gentleman that was talking about remote viewing, and they went through a bunch of skill sets on how to do this. And he had a pretty interesting thing happen to him while he said he looked like he was up looking down on himself in the class, and and it was kind of weird. They were drawing, I guess they were trying to draw some images of what they were describing in the class, and he was they were teaching how to focus in on things like that. Um, but I don't know if he continued on with it enough to do that. But I I think it may be possible to, because that's the reason why he wanted to learn more about it, to remote view and where these creatures could be, where we're investigating. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's a
So,
useful skill. People don't realize, we looking for where did you leave your keys, or how do I find this one specific Christmas gift that I'm going to purchase? You save a lot of time by just, using
yeah,
that part of your mind to be able to locate things or to know things. It doesn't even have to be a location, but just to know stuff. I have a little Ford Ranger pickup, and sometimes it kind of locks up whenever I turn when I turn it off and the wheels are just in the right spot, that steering column will just lock up
lock
a
up on.
little bit. And so it's like, and I've had trouble with this before. So, and you can't get it started. You can't do anything with it until you can get that unlocked. And
Mhm.
so I thought, oh, well, heck with this. I'm just going to remote view this and see what am I supposed to do here to get this thing to work. And what I got was, don't put your foot on the clutch and the brake. Don't touch that. Don't put the key in, nothing like that. And just barely wiggle that wheel just back and forth, the steering wheel just back and forth just a little bit and it'll unlock. And it did, So that was saved a lot of frustration is what it did.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now, does it come naturally to you, or did you have to work
No,
towards it?
no, I trained through two different methods. One is more the Aker Casey method, where you go into a deep, more trance-like state, and then the remote viewing method, the more controlled remote viewing method that the military used is it's
Mhm.
kind of a cumbersome process, but I kind of developed my own process out of the two of those, and of course, teach them today. But I'm working on a new class called Superpowered Insight, SPI, SPI, which helps people to see the future. What I recognized, I've taught people a lot of these skills over my lifetime, but what I recognized was in my lifetime, I've just had a lot of blessings from being able to know things in advance.
Right.
I'm a real estate investor by profession, so a lot of those investments were shown to me prior to
Gotcha.
actually seeing the property and things like that. So I had, it's been really good to me. And I thought, boy, if I could bottle this, I'd make a fortune. But the thing
Yeah.
is, you can bottle it, you can teach it, and other people also reap the rewards of what you can do with this. Because there's so
That's
many
cool.
things. I mean, whether it be a protective mode,
Hmm.
knowing what not to go into, or whether it be something, an adventure or a venture even
Right.
out there that you can invest in. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that this is an extremely valuable tool. And unfortunately, we have kind of like the woo of Bigfoot. A
Mhm.
lot of this sort of thing is kind of looked down on, and people are not able to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
I think in part it's because it's put into such a realm of like spiritual whatever, when really it's just a human skill that we've lost. Like you said, indigenous
Right.
people used it because they didn't have cell phones.
Nope.
They had to use their mind, and so they were able to see things or know things and help them to survive.
Living off the grid, so to speak, or living off in the forest. Um, that's where we originated from. Is doing having those skills. Like I said, we got so far away from that. Everything's at our fingertips now, which you know doesn't really help us out now as far as if all those things got taken away, people wouldn't not know what to do for themselves. Um,
That's true. And
would you?
we went the road of technology rather
Yeah,
than human development.
right.
Bigfoot may have gone the road of developing Bigfoot, to be able to not only survive, but to know things, to be able to do things. And we relied on technology, which is also a very expensive lifestyle for
It is.
us.
Yeah,
And it kind of dumbs us down.
it does. It does. And I think that's a hampering factor out in the field for one, many reasons. But I think that kind of hampers us. If we follow those same skill sets of our ancestors, um, that lived off the grid and lived off, the land, I think that may help us get a little bit closer. Um, that's why and back to your point about the remote viewing thing. I was gonna ask you, do you think that a lot of it depends on the pineal gland eh, that helps? Because um, I always wondered about that because through our many hundreds of years is that It's been purposely uh, calcified, and so it's a tool that that not trying to get into conspiracy things, but that some groups don't want us to use that because then we would be, more superior to certain people. Um, so in order to do that, they would uh, calcify that pineal gland so that it would be harder for us to use that.
That might
Um,
possibly be true. I teach remote viewing, but I remember the very first class that I taught. There was a guy showed up, and it was obvious he already knew remote viewing. He was from the military, which I thought was kind of strange. But whenever I told him it was a week-long class, and he said he was in the military, he was very upfront about that. And I said, "Will you be able to do this?" It was like it was going to be a few months in advance. And he goes, "They'll let me come anytime you have the class." And I'm thinking, okay, he's here spying on us. He's not. He's not. Now, I never heard from him again, but I did think it was really odd that it was the only student I've ever had that took a picture of the entire class. So I
yeah,
think
that's kind of a red flag right
it's
there
kind
for
of a
you.
red flag that maybe, the good news on their side is most people don't want to take the time and effort to learn this or use it. So,
Right.
but the
That's
ones who
true.
do, yeah, they benefit from it. I certainly have in my lifetime. So I
That's
think,
awesome.
and I think a lot of people just naturally fall into having, moments where they see things or know things when it's important. It will come in anyway, oftentimes. People,
Yeah.
I know this one lady, she was driving down the road and she drove this every day, but she was coming up on a hill and all of a sudden she had this sense. It's like, oh, slow down. There's an accident on the other side. And as she topped the hill, sure enough, there it was. So I think we do have that naturally built into us, but sometimes it doesn't get our attention unless it's something just really vital like that.
Yeah, sometimes it just has to hit us in the face, so to speak, to, get our attention.
Mhm.
Whereas, it should be more so like that, a sense that you pick up. And um, but I think these creatures, they're up on that higher level, and so when we're out in their area, their senses are so high, of course, um, that we come through to them. Probably we come through the forest like so to speak, a bulldozer, because they can hear us, they can smell us, they already know we're there. So and I tell people this all the time. You go in these areas that we find and research, and sometimes these adolescent ones, they want to get curious and kind of sort of get close to us too and try to figure us out. And I don't think the adults, uh, Sasquatch, want their adolescents to do that. They're more protective. Um, but a lot of times we've noticed that some of these ones, depending on the size of their tracks, you can decipher that these are, either, you know young adult Sasquatches, or older ones, of course. The biggest misconception here in Florida, I feel, my personally, is that a lot of people think that the skunk ape down here in Florida are a smaller version of the Sasquatches out west. Um, Now, from eyewitness accounts, if you look at those, uh, it kind of defeats that possibility, because there's been eyewitnesses down here that claim to have seen these creatures standing upwards of 9 to 10 feet tall in some areas here in Florida. And, excuse me, some of the tracks that we found um, down here measure from any basically infant size on up to adult size, up to 18, 19 inches, and 6 and 8 inches wide. Uh, um, so that tells us that, these creatures, they have a bigger span of girth, as so to speak. So they're not all smaller creatures, so to speak. There probably most likely possibly are smaller ones here, but they could be, young adults that there's people are seeing. Um, but all the reports that I've read, mostly down here, point to and any pretty much every size of a Sasquatch or Bigfoot that we have here in the state of Florida than anywhere else in the country.
Yeah, I've heard that too, that they're look differently, but there could be variations, everywhere. So
Mhm.
they have different coloring sometimes, different mannerisms even. Some are more
Right.
aggressive in certain areas and others are not. I've heard that often is due to the resources in an area, food sources, where they can become really territorial if there's a scarcity of things to eat.
Oh yeah, there's one of the reports, and I always bring this up on the podcast shows that I do, only because to me it was the most aggressive one in the state of Florida that I've came across. And actually, I didn't hear about this until because I listened to other podcast shows, and one of them was the Sasquatch Chronicles with Wes Germer. And I heard this podcast, and I got a hold of Wes that does the show. And I told Wes, I said, you got to give this guy my information because I know that exactly where this location is. It's not far, maybe within, I think it was a 2 hour drive. Um, and his name is Steve. And I had the encounter. And he had one charge at him while he was on a kayak. Um, and that, I would say the report is on our website, but it's actually on our encounters page. You can view that. I actually just linked it to Wes's podcast show because the information is so long on that encounter. As there's actually 2 episodes of this. Um, so I encourage you, maybe your listeners to go to our website, or it'd probably be easier to go to our website and just look it up because it's broke down into the 2 episodes that were there on Wes's uh, podcast show. Um, but it was very interesting. The poor guy had PTSD for quite a while. Um, and there was the second episode kind of takes the listener or down how far the rabbit hole goes, so to speak, as far as um, agencies wanting to keep things quiet. So if people are wondering, if this is all a bunch of malarkey that these things exist, you have to ask yourself these questions. If it wasn't true, why are these agencies spending so much time and resources and with money and stuff to keep it quiet? So that second episode is pretty interesting um, after you hear the first episode. So I encourage your audience to listen to those 2 episodes. It's pretty interesting. But that was the probably the most aggressive one that I've heard of here in the state of Florida, and that creature was every bit of 7 feet tall and very muscular and very fast, and actually had the opportunity that actually Adam Davis heard of that encounter, um, and he actually scheduled time to come to Florida and go out with our team into that area to go check it out, and it was pretty really interesting. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to that location at the time with Adam. Um, Only because we had some difficulties with some boats that we were using. We had pontoon boats loaded down with equipment to get out to this location to be able to research the area really well. We got close, but we couldn't get exactly close to on the area where we had to get to because the pontoon boats that we were using were hitting sandbars, and we couldn't get through because of the sandbars. So We tried some other tactics to get to that location, but in this particular area, it's pretty much locked down, and it's owned. A lot of the property around it's owned by government agency. So, um, so you can't trespass on it. You gotta have, special permissions and a reason why you want to get on this property. But uh, me and one other team member had the opportunity the first time before Adam Davis came. We actually got to the location and checked out the whole area. Unfortunately, it was um, hit with a hurricane um, a couple of weeks before that. So anything that was in the area is probably just out of the area at that point. But we did get to check out the terrain of that area. It was pretty thick and heavily wooded. And my observation of it could be that these areas, this one area in particular, um, could probably house multiple families of these creatures in this area. So, um, but yeah, that was a very good encounter, as far as the aggressiveness of how these creatures were. And I think it was only due to because Steve kind of interrupted a hunt that this creature was on, and he thinks, and I think that this creature was hunting little boar pigs at the time. But that's a really good, interesting story if you want to check it out. I encourage
It
your
sounds like it.
listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't heard that one before. So, yeah, I will definitely do that. So, I think that's a good one for us to end on today. So, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
Well,
And
you're very
I will
welcome.
let you know when this comes out. Thanks so
All
much.
right. Well, thank you very much, Linda, and you have a good day.